Hey guys, welcome back, Cult of Man, Kyle and Noah. It's been a little minute for us, but actually not for you guys because we are sandbagging episodes. So anyway, I'm just happy to be back with my dude here on the pod. And today we are in our last few episodes have been pretty, I guess, we've been digging deeper, getting vulnerable, sharing stuff, and today's going to be no exception. Today, we are going to talk about something that Noah and I have a lot of familiarity with, as do a lot of people, but I feel like it's only sort of now getting some real honest dialogue or conversation out on podcasts because of people like Andrew Huberman giving us all of the details on just how bad alcohol is for us. But today, Noah and I will be talking about alcoholism in our lives and all day. Again, first-hand experience, what your mileage may vary, but this is us talking and just the things that we've learned. I've done a little bit of research, but I'm going to kick this over to our man Noah. And what do you think, man?
Yeah, I honestly, I haven't really I've been pushing off sort of opening up on certain things on this podcast. And this is my chance to open up on some things that I wouldn't really normally do maybe. And I think it's good for me. It's sort of like the last two episodes we had with you, Kyle, opening up and sharing things that, make you squirm a little bit maybe, or stuff like that. Sure. So today we're going to be talking about alcoholism, and we're not just going to keep it there. We will talk about substances too, because alcoholism is a disease and it doesn't discriminate on the substance. It doesn't discriminate on people. Like anybody can have this disease. The one thing I really am looking forward to getting your opinion on is the disease concept of it, and whether or not you buy into that. I personally do. I do feel like it does fall into a class of mental illness. I think it's something as such as depression, anxiety, borderline personality disorder. It's something that happens in the brain to certain people, and there's certain ways in which we can recover from this and change our lifestyle, change our ways. I personally have things to share that I haven't even told you in my life yet, Kyle, and I'm excited to do it. Okay. I think, I think let's just start with a little background here. I mean, we know Kyle has had alcoholism with his mother and drug abuse as well. And I've had that in my family. My grandfather struggled from alcoholism. My grandmother struggled with it, and it definitely got passed down to me for sure. And that was one thing that, I haven't really opened up too much about. I have been to rehab. I have been, a few times, and it got bad in my life with it, and it really, for me, was a way to cope with, the things I've been through, having diabetes, the traumas I've experienced. Drugs were something that I could cope with a lot of my issues. So I would say I started using drugs when I was like 14, right? So probably 14, 15, smoking weed, mostly drinking. But it escalated pretty quick. Like I started to get real things wrong in my life due directly to alcohol and drugs. I was arrested when I was 15 years old for a drug-related crime. And these things just piled up. And it wasn't until my mid-20s that, right around the time I met you, I decided I wanted to get clean. So I got sober, and I was sober for years. And I'm like, sober to me is a mindset. So it's like, I'm sober now. I do drink occasionally. I do indulge in THC occasionally, but for me, this is why this is such an interesting topic for me right now, because for a while, I felt like I was an alcoholic. I felt like I have this disease of alcoholism, and it's something that I will live with for the rest of my life, and I will always have to abstain. And it wasn't in the last 4 or so years of my spiritual development where I've really tried to understand who I am, why I do the things I do, what makes me what made me use drugs? Why did I do this, that, the other thing? It's been really eye-opening because I don't feel that way now. I don't feel like I'm an addict. I don't feel like I have that disease at all. Good, and I will attribute jiu-jitsu to a big part of just feeling more comfortable with myself. I want to do a pod sometime on anxiety, but essentially most of my problems boil down to having generalized anxiety, and drugs and alcohol. And there was a mixture of both, right? But it was a way for me to deal with the anxiety, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm really glad to hear that you don't think of yourself as an addict anymore.
No,
because
I don't.
And that's great, because I guess this is the problem that I have with the concept of, you would ask what I thought about the concept of it being a disease.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably my biggest problem with classifying it as a disease, because I've known at least 3 people in my life that it seemed that because it was framed for them as a disease, they then thought of themselves as perpetual addicts. That even if they weren't drinking, smoking, or taking pills, that they were this addict. Yeah. And I think only one of those 3 people, got out from under it. I have a friend right now, and it makes me so angry that he's like, I'm an addict. I'm like, you are what you decide to be. Like, I know that there are gradations of cognitive power. There's gradations of willpower in people, and so on. There's always going to be a percentage of people who can get super fit, some people who can be relatively fit, and some people who just can't get it together. And there's no difference with alcohol use, drug use, food, any of those things. Of course, you can abuse anything. And, I think for the key is, deciding, okay, I've got to be real with myself. It's like, okay, I can either mess with this stuff or I can't. Like for me, I come from a family of, as we've discussed in earlier pods, a family of Herculean alcoholics, alcoholics, and people who have had drug abuse problems. I can barely drink. If I have 2 drinks, within an hour, I'm ready to fall asleep. Even if I've eaten, the same thing with THC, I can't really do it. It stays in my system too long. It slows me down. I am much better on caffeine. Nootropics. That's it. I need like coffee. That's if I have a drug of choice. And I don't think of coffee as a drug. I genuinely like the flavor of it, like the ritual of it. I guess it would be caffeine. Yeah. But I've seen enough people that seem to, when framed as a disease, they kind of make it a crutch. They view themselves as an addict, and they never quite get out from under it. So when you said, I'm not an addict, that really made me feel good, because obviously you're a massive value to me as a really good friend. And so to hear that is great, because I have another friend who, he's on and off all the time. And I just wish he would be able to, I wish he could get it together. And it's a mindset thing, but it's a mindset thing. It's also, I kind of want to throttle his therapist. I'm like, stop telling this guy he's an addict. He's not an addict. You're making a decision to do something. If you don't do that anymore, then you're not that thing.
Yeah.
If you don't go mountain,
you're exactly right. You're exactly right. It's like, if you tell yourself you're an addict, more likely than not, you're gonna start to believe it. And it's like, when you have all these people around you telling you you're an addict, or like, are you an addict, or like all this stuff, which I did experience a lot of. It was like right around I was like 18 years old, where you don't even know who you are, right? And it's like, because I was basically, what happened was I had a sports injury, and I was prescribed this medication, right? This opiate. And and the doctor didn't wean me off it right. And so afterwards, and I was living in this town where like drugs it was everywhere. It just seemed like everybody would take an oxycodone on the weekend or whatever for fun, right?
Ooh, yeah.
And so it just became this thing where it was all around and this and that. But then like I went to therapists and I went to these meetings and all this stuff where there was all this information being spit at me. And I started to believe it. And I started to almost feel like, yeah, it was a little bit of a brainwashing, I feel like. And then which brings me to the AA thing. The AA thing, I had a lot of experience with that. And it's like, looking back on it, I all due respect to the AA people. Like if you do that, you know, and that works for you, great. But if you're like a really purpose-driven person, and the only reason I used was because I wasn't fulfilling my purpose and I was anxious, all this stuff. It was other issues, and drugs just happened to be there. And yeah, man, it's a really long story. But anyways, if you're in AA, God bless you, do it. But I do feel like it's just replacing another addiction for another one. It's like, I gotta get to, I remember like people would be like, I gotta get to a meeting. Like, I didn't understand. I don't understand.
I have a client right now who she's been sober for, I think 20 years, but all talks, and she's heavily involved in AA as an organization. Yeah. And those people obviously need people that, you know, support, and that's how the organization works. And they do help people off of it, but it's her entire life. And it's exactly what you said. It's like, yes, okay, so you swapped out alcohol for this quasi-religion. And again, I'm not here necessarily to argue religion, but it is interesting to me that there's so many people who it's like, so the only thing keeping you from having that drink or popping that pill is believing in a higher power. That doesn't seem like a great foundation to making sure that you don't do it. Why don't you just do it for you? Why don't you just do it because you want to be happier? You want to be a productive, healthy, clear-minded person. I've always found it so interesting that so there's so many people that they'll do a thing that's good for them, but not for themselves, which is I don't understand. I mean, again, if it keeps you from being a complete addict lunatic that destroys your family, then great. Do what you have to do. But I guess I'm always kind of surprised when people just don't do it just because they want to be better. And I've known plenty of people who they quit cigarettes, they quit drinking, they quit smoking weed, they quit doing all these things. It's like, this isn't serving me, as they say in today's zeitgeist. It's not serving me. It's not making me better. It's not making me smarter. It's not making me happier. So I'm just going to stop doing that. It's along the lines of having friends that just stopped eating junk food. Let's say I had a friend who wants to, I'm just doing this because it's there. And if I don't buy it and I don't bring it home, I don't eat it. If I don't bring the whiskey home, I can't drink it. If I don't bring the chips home, I can't eat it. If I don't bring the cake home, I can't eat it. And so I've known people that are like that too. But you said something that's super important, and I'm absolutely the epidemic of alcoholism in this country and across the world is, I think, an epidemic of what you mentioned, lack of purpose. We have done a really poor job through the education system of helping people to figure out what their purpose is. Yeah, we've created now two entire generations of sort of activists who are just as anxious, miserable, depressed, and fat as the boomers were when the boomers decided, they were going to do whatever they were going to do. And again, for some people, religion pulls them up, but I feel like religion is, again, per philosophy, kind of a guide. It still doesn't tell you what to do. It doesn't tell you, oh, you're a carpenter, or you're a designer, or you're a veterinarian, or you're a personal trainer. It doesn't answer those questions. So you're still left with you. You still have to use your mind, apply it to the world, figure out what you like to do, and try to build a life out of it, or do something that you at least don't hate. And
I do like the model, though. I like the model of recovery, of going somewhere, like, because there are, think about the millions of people that are out there saying, I suffer from addiction, and there's so much evidence that suggests that there is something there. There is some validity to the addict thing. But what I do think you're right. It's a lack of purpose, because if you had something in your life that was more important to you than the drug or the drink, then you wouldn't, because you would have this other thing. So it does go back to such a simple thing, which is that the lack of purpose that we're taught in schools. And then there's only one way. It's AA. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think there's more than one. I think you can, like me, and I'm going to say this, I have recovered fully from that. And I'm very proud of it. I'm very
No, you should be, man. You should be.
Yeah. My mom is very proud. I was just on the phone with my mom, you know, God bless you, Mom. You know, she's very proud of it. She's like almost mind blown by it. But it's like, you know, it's been the last 4 years or so that I haven't used drugs, you know, I haven't used drugs, and it's, yeah, it's awesome. But,
it's not, and also, but this seems to have coincided with, because obviously we've been reconnected for a few years now. They're also saying, I mean, that there's a direct correlation between your recovery and the fact that you have been doing, because I've seen you do it. We've had conversations, we've hung out. You're doing the deep work. You are asking the tough questions. Why the hell am I here? What do I really want to do? You're painting, you're rolling jujitsu, you're studying, you're doing all of these things that are filling time that would have just been wasted on, basically it just sort of, what they say a lot of addiction is sort of neurotic behavior, because you're not putting your time and efforts into something constructive. You know, what's the old saying? Idle hands of the devil's play shop, or a playground, or whatever. And that's exactly it. And you're so much better. I don't think I've ever seen you more optimistic, happier, bright-eyed than I've seen you of late. And that really makes me feel good, because there's a lot of people out there that aren't doing well. That haven't, and this is a thing too, per my, you know, it's volitional. You have to make a choice to decide you want better. You have to make a choice to decide, okay, I have a life, I have time in this life. What do I want to do with it? And if you choose not to do that, of course you're going to get sucked into, you know, a lot of BS. You know, you're going to do drugs. You're going to drink more than you should. You're going to hang around people that maybe don't, that do those same things and don't lift you up and don't, you know, hold your feet to the fire. So and that's kind of, I saw my mom do that. My mom could, I remember times my mom could flip a switch and she could get her shit together, man. She could have it completely together, and then she just decide to, she'd disappear for like a week at a time on a bender. So there is a choice involved. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know the range of willpower and stuff there, but it is a decision on some level. I mean, I've had my own struggles with food, my own struggles with how I use my time, what I just think about, you know, but it's like obsessing, like realizing how much time I've devoted to certain thoughts, and it's like, what are you doing? And it's like, nope, I'm going to stop doing that because it doesn't serve me. And
well, the decision thing that you just said, the decision thing is so important, because it's like, then we can make a decision to say, I'm an addict and I need recovery, and I need to go to a meeting and say I'm an addict every day for the rest of my life. Or I can realize that this might come from an internal wound, that something needs to heal, something needs to change. I need to, you know, take that moral inventory and see why I'm doing this. Why am I using drugs? What is my passion? Who am I? Where am I going? You know, and you don't need to make the decision that you're I do think that there's something to what you said. Yeah.
And it's like I said, I'm sure there's a gradation, you know. Like when I had a conversation, and not that we'll get into it, there's a gradation within masculinity and femininity. You know, on one side of the masculine, you've got like Jason Momoa, and then on the other end, you have Timothy Chalamet. You know, on the female spectrum, like on one end, you might have Jennifer Lopez, and then on the other side, you have Glenn Close. You know, so there's gradations of femininity, there's gradations of masculinity, there's gradations of tall and short, there's gradations of skinny and fat, or muscular or skinny. And it would make sense that within the human will, it's probably easier for some people to, and I know because I've seen this in my life, I've known people that just went cold turkey. And I've heard people, I've read somewhere, people saying, oh, we should never go cold turkey on anything. I've known people in my life that was the only thing that worked. I'm done this minute, and I'm done forever. And they did it. So those people, you know, it's almost like a David Goggins level sort of mindset, you know, and some people are like that. Some people it's like, okay, I just won't bring it home, so I won't have it when I'm at home, you know. And, you know, again, some people it's like, okay, I'm having my one drink this month. I'm gonna have my one drink this month. And, you know, some people can do moderation, some people can't. But I don't think a one-size-fits-all probably works. You got to figure out, like you said, you take the moral inventory, you figure out, where am I wounded, where are my feelings insecure, where can I fix that so that I don't do this behavior that clearly is hurting.
Yeah, exactly. It is so interesting. It is so interesting because you go into these meetings, and like, I got to preface it again because I know that meetings do save a lot of people's lives.
Sure,
and whether they know it or not, you know, whether it is some sort of brainwashing thing, some people need their brain washed, you know, and it is what it is. For me, it isn't for me. It isn't for me. I don't want to go someplace every day and say I'm an addict or I'm an alcoholic, because it's like, I don't need to say that. So it actually took me stepping back from it and stepping back from people that were like telling me, you know, you drink too much, you know, you do this too much, that too much. It took me stepping back from those people, not attaching myself to like a label, to really realize that it had nothing to do with some addiction disease thing for me. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with anxiety, dude, and trying to cope with it. And given the situation, the place I grew up, the people I grew up around, you know, my stepfather certainly was an alcoholic. You know, God rest his soul. You know, that dude was an alcoholic. He definitely was. You know, I don't know if I've said this on the pod before, but yeah, the dude. Is that Cookie?
Sorry. Yeah, no, the dog. Somebody walked in. The dog.
All good.
Yeah,
my
dog. Sorry.
It's all good.
Go ahead, please continue. I apologize.
No. It's all good. My dog's chilling too right here. Anyways, yeah, my stepdad was an alcoholic. He was an untreated alcoholic, and this is what I want to say is I think for people like him, Alcoholics Anonymous could have been a help to him if he, because he ended up killing himself, right? Because he wasn't able to
do it himself. He needed help.
Yeah, do it himself, right? And the community thing is good and this and that, but that's where for me it's like all I need is a jiu-jitsu gym, some good friends, and I don't feel the need to abuse anything. But I do feel like I've had this weird psychic shift over the last 3 years that could be a part of it. But I think I needed to go through all of that.
Right.
There's some of these stories it's just insane stories, especially at some of these rehabs, seeing people, you know, go through things, way worse things sometimes.
Right.
And, man, yeah, it was just jaw-dropping stories. I mean, California, Los Angeles is like the Mecca, one of the Meccas of recovery communities. It's like, it's huge there. It's also huge there in Florida, like Marina Del Rey.
Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting how some of the most beautiful places in the country also are the places where you have the people most abusing drugs, where you have like the absolute mecca of recovery. It's interesting to me. I mean, I remember when I did rideshare, the amount of people I would pick up, and people that were in recovery or going to recovery. For some reason, they just like to tell me their story. And one thing I kind of noticed about all of them, like people who were wealthy, like kids that were wealthy, a lot of people that were models, people who were super attractive like yourself, people who on paper, you'd look at this like, this is what I want to be. This is what everybody would want to be. This guy would want to be that guy or that gal or whatever.
Right.
And then you realize, oh, none of this matters.
None of it matters.
You have a sense of purpose. You don't know what your values are. And you're not ready to take the courageous step to figure out what they are. Like that seems to be the biggest thing. When people would rather just sit than go out and, like you said, anxiety was anxiety. What if I screw up? What if I look like a fool? Well, you're not going to know until you try, but that's the toughest part. And it's like this. I remember when I first really truly stepped into a gym, like a weightlifter's bodybuilder's gym, after I had been building my body just sort of literally in my room as a teenager. And when I went in, my heart was just boom. I mean, I thought ass out, and I go in there, and it was amazing to me how quickly, once you start talking to people, talking to these guys that look like they fell out of Olympus, how oh wait, they started somewhere, and how encouraging they were. And that's why for me, and again, I've had friends that are in AA that look at people coming in the same way. Like when I go to the gym and I see, someone who is overweight or a guy who's really skinny, I'm like, you are the bravest person in here, because the rest of us have been working out for a decade. The rest of us know, or we've competed or whatever it is. You are technically the strongest person today. And I think that's the same thing with recovery, that the scariest thing is probably taking that step, because you're so used to doing that thing that when you make the decision to go in and do it, like that's like everything, that your life has just started. And we need to remind people that, I know this is the scariest part of it, but just go do it anyway. Even if you don't stick with this program, if you stick with a program, or like you figure out what parts of it work for you, and then you fill in the other parts of your life with wellness and exercise and painting and jujitsu. It's, again, because it's not one size fits all, but you have to take that first step. You have to take the moral inventory. You have to stop BSing yourself. You've got to be real with yourself, and then you have to take the step. And I wish more people would not let the fear dictate, because we lose people. I mean, how many people? I mean, I've lost so many people in my life to drugs and alcohol, and that's why we need to be encouraging too. Like, I never lead with, "Oh, you're weak," or or like, because I think what you could twist what I've said is, okay, Kyle doesn't believe that any of it's a disease, so he just thinks you're weak.
No, that's not what you think.
Because I've been weak. I've been weak at times. There's times it's like, oh, I did not need to eat that, whatever it is, and I did anyway. Okay, that was okay. All right, I won't do that again. So sometimes we do get weak, but I guess I look at it this way: if you just getting through the day of not drinking is your victory, then that's your victory. And you shouldn't be comparing yourself to anybody else. If you just getting through that day of not eating any sugar or crap, that's your victory. You can't necessarily compare yourself to, like, you've been, sober 4 years, or somebody's been sober 10 years. It's not about that. It's about you taking that step, I think.
No, absolutely. And when you said the piece about needing to see, the thing in the AA meetings is that they don't work unless they have the newcomers, right? Because they see what they were like when they were at their worst part of using. And so it's very interesting to see that they need to see the scum and the horror and all of the bad times for the program to work. I mean, look.
So let me get this straight. So are you saying that the people who have been in the program a long time, what keeps them on the straight and narrow are seeing these new folks come in? Yeah. Whoa. Okay. Yeah. I don't want to do that again.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's what it is because, and then they go to those people and they work them through the 12 steps. So it's like, it doesn't even work unless there are the newcomers. And here's the thing, man. I'm really glad we're talking about this because I haven't really had someone to like put the pieces together and have this conversation with. And I mean, I always love our conversations, but this one specifically is nice because I've just had so much mixed emotions over the disease model and over the AA experience that I had. I just got to say, like, I took what, like you said, I took the good out of AA and I took the experience out of it as much as I could. But there are just things about it that just I don't jive with. And
well, it seems to me what you identified there with, stating how the veterans need the newbies to come in to remind them of how shitty life can be if they're not on the straight and narrow. Well, that identifies the problem. That okay,
Yeah.
okay. You still, if you need that, then it means you haven't built the purpose, value-based life that is so important that you'd never do anything to jeopardize it. You're just doing the program. Like you're now. It's sort of like you've triaged your addiction with meetings as opposed to building a fulfilling, purpose-filled life that again you'd never do anything to jeopardize. So you touch it again. Instead you just need this continual horror show coming through the door so that you don't pick up a drink. Like that doesn't seem per individual to be a long-ranging strategy for success. I mean, maybe it does because people, at least if you're in the program, you're not abusing, but you still haven't built up that foundation of purpose and values that you care about so much. That should be the reason you don't drink, because you love yourself, because you love your career, because you love being healthy, because you love your family, because you love your wife, your husband. That should be your reason not to use, not because you go to meetings and you've got these young people come in and that have messed up their lives.
It's exactly right. I mean, it becomes an addiction for people. Like if they don't go to a meeting for 3 or 4 days, they're itching to go to a meeting because they're very addicted to it. And then their purpose becomes like being someone that goes to a meeting and helps other people, and they assume that as their identity.
Well, it could be this too. Let me think about it. It could be a different thing. It's possible that what the meetings and what the program offers is the sense of community maybe that they never had. Because we seem to be figuring out right now with the opioid epidemic, with the fentanyl crisis, with this clear epidemic of a lack of meaning in the lives of so many people. What was my point? That we're missing sort of community, that if you at least had like what we used to do with like faith communities, people aren't as religious as they used to be, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It depends on how you use religion and or all of that. But people do need to be around other people. Like as individualistic as I am, as I do believe every man is an island, because your life is your life and you're the prime mover in your life. There's nobody else to do that for you. So but I love being with my family. I love spending time with my friends. I love creative jam sessions. I love doing this stuff on and off camera with you. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people that don't have that. I didn't have that through probably my pre-adolescence, my teenage years, through my early 20s. I just didn't, because I didn't drink, because I came from an alcoholic household, never touched it, and you pay socially for that. But whether it's my situation or people are just, sometimes you're just the odd man out in your town. Yeah. But you need some type of a community. In your case, you found a really good place with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. You need to get in where you fit in, and that does seem to fill that hole of being a person in the world and being able to interface with other people and contribute and talk and learn. And a lot of people just don't have that. So they may be using the program. It's like, okay, I've got some purpose here. I belong here. I can help people here. So in that respect, I don't really see too big of a problem with it. I don't want to be critiquing AA too much, because I've never done it. I'm not super familiar with it. I've known people that have done it. And I'm not trying to come down on the program. I'm just trying to think of it in a different way, that maybe it's the community, it's the family, it's the group of friends that these people never had. So now they have it. So I can understand why they would maybe want to keep it. Yeah.
I was in it, and I understood why I went. But the thing was I started to understand why I was doing it, instead of just being in it. And then, because what usually happens is like your life does get better, because you make friends, and maybe you get a job, and you get the community, like you were saying. But and then what you do is what most people do is they start attributing it to that higher power. So they start to say, this is all good because my higher power is doing this for me. Right. But it's really you doing it for you. You're the one that's doing it. You essentially are your own higher power.
I'm so glad you said that, because this is a question that I've always had about how do people who are truly faithful people who are super pious people of faith, how do you ever develop a sense of self-esteem if everything that is good that happens in your life comes from God, and everything bad that happens is a result of your actions? Like, that was something that I sort of, as being raised Catholic, it was sort of, due to how I was raised, it was like, if something bad happened, my mom would literally say, God gotcha, God gotcha. Like, I did something wrong, and that really fucks with your head. But I do find it interesting that how does somebody, if everything good, let's take the person in AA who attributes their recovery, their ability to get into a great career, their ability to get in a great relationship. So all of that came from the higher power. Yeah. Okay. So because you can develop self-esteem without achieving things in your life and achieving things in your character. So I kind of wonder, where are these people at in that regard? Like, how do you develop a sense of healthy, rational pride if everything that you've done in your life isn't really your doing? Yeah, all the good things that you've achieved aren't even your own accomplishments. So how do you develop that healthy sense of self, that healthy sense of rational pride? I just that's always been a point of something I'd have a hard time understanding.
Yeah, exactly, and that's.
I makes sense that it was probably a mix of both. If you are somebody who does believe in God, obviously you have free will. Yeah, and it's sort of like, in my study of Islam, there's this. It's sort of it's a parrot. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf talks about it as sort of like, it's an interesting. He said our faith is an interesting paradox between the absolute power of God and free will. And there's some, it's hard to sort of wrap your head around, but I guess people can do it, and people do, because I know lots of people, I have lots of friends that are Christian or Muslim or do just believe in God, but aren't in a religion, and it clearly works for them in a way. It's just something that I have a hard time sort of figuring out in my own head.
You're a very logical person, and
it's the Aristotelian.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's hard because that's where I decided that I have no problem maybe someday. Well, actually, at this point, I can't see myself ever going to an AA meeting. There'd be no point, right? Unless I was supporting somebody. But that's why I sort of just stepped away from it, and I honestly have started to critique it, maybe a little too much, but it was something that I did for some time, right? And I just really started to wonder, like, what is going on there? And like, it's fascinating. It's fascinating, honestly. From an outside perspective.
Yeah, and I don't. Yeah, man. I just keep coming back to. I did a solo episode that, and I just in terms of my, when I was in Chicago, and I was acutely aware of life and death, and I believe it's the episode that'll be before this one, and it's so, man. I believe that it is a benevolent universe. As long as we act in accordance with reason, we're rational people, we work to mutual benefit. I think for the most part, freak accidents and terrible things, they aren't the norm in the world. They're not the norm in the universe. It doesn't work that way. But there are things that happen, and I went back home to Chicago, and the amount of people I couldn't visit because they all had effing cancer. Really, just like, ooh, and again, it's different. I never thought about, if I see like, a dark mole, now I actually worry about that shit. When I was in my 20s, I never worried about that stuff at all. And now I'm literally, when I go back on my visits to Chicago to see friends and family, it's amazing to me. I'm like, oh wow. I keep remembering that my cousin Annie passed away of a drug overdose like half a decade ago. Like, I keep thinking that she's around because she was one of those people that was just a really kind of bright light person. And so now sitting in front of you here, sitting in front of you across the country, and hearing you say and seeing you come up and seeing all this light in you, and just literally like the light behind your eyes, and just the genuine sense of you know, like, I know that things are not perfect and where you want them to be in your life. They're not in mine either, but we have our health, we have our faculties, we have goals and values that we're shooting for. You know, we're at least blessed enough to wake up and fight another day. We have good people around us. We have dogs that love us unconditionally. I focus on, okay, what do I have? What do I have? What do I have?
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm glad that you're in such a good place, because I've known people that were as cool as you, as good as you, as smart as you, that didn't make it. And people that are as good as you and as nice as you right now back home,
it's sad,
that are so ill, I could not even go into a room with them because their body is compromised by all the chemo and all the stuff they have to do. And it's just, whew, man, I really, really, really do not, I don't take anything for granted. Long story short, I don't take anything for granted anymore. And, you know, this life is finite. You know, if it's one thing that I learned from, you know, brushing up on my Stoic philosophy, is memento mori. You know, your life will end. This all will come to an end one day. And so it's so important just to live as well as we possibly can now, that even if you make a mistake, as long as you're actually pursuing truth, you're pursuing that which is good for you, even if you stumble, it's okay. You know, I think sometimes we stumble and we mess up and we're like, you know, it's like, I've ruined it all. No, you haven't. You just, don't bring Hostess cakes home. don't make sure those, you know, don't make sure there's no, you know, it's like, okay, you know, you don't bring edibles home if you don't want to doing that. And I'm just acutely aware of people around me that have had a seismic shift towards the better. And I'm proud of you, but I'm proud for you. If that makes sense.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I love you for that. Thank you for saying that. That's really nice.
It's cool to see people winning. It's cool because I feel like if everybody just did what was within their own power, as a country, as a world, we'd be in such better shape. Imagine if all of us just focused on doing the right thing and in our own lives, doing by ourselves, doing the right thing by ourselves, and then by everyone around us. This planet could be spinning like a top, man. If all the collaboration, the technological innovations, all the art we would be making, instead of wasting all of our time on all this outrage nonsense and culture war stuff and people just being angry and being sad and being anxious. I mean, you know, depression, I don't think is a disease. I think depression happens because it's life or your body reminding you need to be doing something different. You know, depression, as far as I'm concerned, isn't always bad. It's part of the journey. But we could, you know, and again, I'm not telling people what they should do. I'm just telling you what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be a guy that does his best, tries to set an example, and I'm surrounded, again, I'm very happy to be surrounded by people like you that are doing their best. And it's just way better. It's so much better than the darkness of either addiction or letting fear call the shots or anxiety. It's so much better.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I just got to say, just to people out there, the 40, 50 people that are watching this, that continue to watch this show, thank you. If you are struggling with it, I nor Kyle are saying that AA is in some way some weird cult, because guess what? No. Cult of fucking man. Welcome.
Right.
But you do need to get recovery. Like if you are struggling think about your mom, right? Like your mom needed some recovery. Like she needed some fucking help there. And if it was AA, maybe if she was served a plate of AA, maybe it would have helped her. Who knows? Absolutely. Try what you got to try, do what you got to do. But I do believe that addiction can be reversed. That's such a controversial thing to say, but I think I believe it because I did it. So, hey, I mean, everyone's different, and maybe there's certain people that will always go, you know.
I kind of look at it like, in a way, I can relate to what you've been through and what people who have addiction issues. I can relate to it having been a fat kid, having been like a fat and overweight teenager. And then just between my sophomore and junior years, I just made the decision. And it wasn't a healthy decision. I stopped eating for a period of time. I basically kind of became anorexic. I didn't eat, over-exercise, but I did move the needle. And I didn't move it a little. I moved it a lot. I dropped 50 pounds between my sophomore and junior year, and obviously lost a lot of muscle with it. Eventually kind of got back to the gym and, weight training on my own. Which is also a huge thing to have gone into weight training when I did, when there weren't a ton of resources, when it wasn't this massive thing that it is now. I'm super proud of myself. But it was that thing of like not knowing. Like there was a period of time where you don't make progress because I didn't understand nutrition. I'm still eating garbage. It's like, God, I kicked my own ass in the gym, and I'm not seeing these changes. And then a few years later, I'd learn more about diet and food and nutrient density and all these things. But it took, I had to want it for myself. I had to decide, I'm not happy in my body as it is. I'm not happy being unhappy with my body and not being able to do the things I want to be able to do with my body. And so you take the step, which is exactly what you did. It's what I've known other people have done. And you always kind of have that reminder of, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to do this anymore.
Just quick story here. So I had this experience where I went to rehab. Then I went, you go to AA after all this stuff, and I got a sponsor there, and this guy just died like last year, right? So I had this sponsor, and he sponsored me. We did all this work together, and some of it was like pretty substantial, and it helped me in some ways and whatever, but he's dead. He OD'd. He's dead.
Wow.
So it's like, you never know.
So the guy who brought you in and got you started,
he's dead.
Ended up dead. Wow.
He's dead. Overdose, dead. Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
It's crazy to think about. I mean, I knew this guy, I went to his house. We talked all the time. I talked to him every day for
Did
3
he seem
months.
were you talking to him going into the overdose?
No.
Okay,
Nope. What happened was,
had you been away from him for a year, 4 years?
Yeah, I had been long gone from the whole AA thing for at least a year, maybe more, because he died last year, and the last time I've been to an AA meeting is at least a long time, 4 years probably, 5 years maybe, but it's crazy, Kyle, that this dude, he's dead, and he was my sponsor, and he was doing this AA thing, and it just goes to show that you have to find something that and physicality is so important. If you're trying to get off drugs, if you're trying to get off alcohol, if you're trying to live healthier, I mean, this isn't even just for people that are using too much alcohol or smoking too much weed or taking too much Adderall, whatever it is, whatever you do, you have to get physical, because if you don't get physical, you're not going to release the anxiety that's stored in our body.
And by physical, you mean getting out and doing some type of exercise.
Yeah. And that's why the jiu-jitsu is the cure for me. And I think it's the cure for everybody, because not only do you get a community and friends, but you grow stronger. You get this superpower where you can literally control, submit anyone, basically, right? Unless they train. This is the cure for people.
Well, it's a kind of self-mastery in a way, because it's a tough art sport to learn, because there are no, based on what I understand, because everybody around me does it, and so I'm privy to these conversations. I've learned a lot about it, even more from you and all that. That there's no cheat code. Like, you have to figure, like a puzzle, you have to figure it out bit by bit to make it work. But there's definitely that sense of self-mastery. And I think about it now, the amount of guys that I've watched on podcasts, either about BJJ or it just happens to come up, but they become practitioners, how many of those guys turn their lives around from, substance abuse womanizing, you name it. They were able to turn a lot of stuff around just by getting this energy out and sort of getting into their body, like just integrating the mind and the body, and sort of using this vessel that we've sort of evolved in. And what do you know? Suddenly, these other things just, it's like, why would I pick up that drink, or why would I pop that pill when I can go feel really great rolling? Whether I get submitted or not, I'm going to learn something, whether I'm submitted or I'm not. So I can take that value home, and I don't get any value from just drinking a bottle of whiskey. So there are a lot of guys that really seem to have turned it around. Well, and I kind of feel like one of the great actors of our time, Tom Hardy, he has become this massive practitioner. He's competing. Here's a guy who he only doesn't do a ton of movies anymore. He's like popping out maybe a couple Venom films, but he's busy being a dad and rolling BJJ. He is somebody who had a lot of trouble with substance abuse at a time. Alcohol, all that stuff. And look at the guy today. Holy smokes. Like it's almost, he doesn't even care if he's a movie star. He's found this way to challenge himself and develop himself and master himself through this art, which is just, it's the most badass masculine thing I can think of, frankly.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't even really think about it like that anymore, just because I've been doing it so long. I know it's insane. Yeah, he's I think he just got promoted to purple belt, and he's won multiple competitions, and it seems like he just doesn't give a crap about anything else anymore. Just does jujitsu and is a father and this and that. Another one, Mark Zuckerberg, right? That dude is doing it. And he's obviously a really smart guy, so I'm sure he's really good at it. And it definitely changes your life when you start to do it. It just changes it changes the course of your life and who you will be, especially in relation to your confidence and just the way your outlook on life. I mean, you seem like the type of person that will do it. I know you will do it eventually. And I'm excited to hear that you're going to also take the certification for. I'm very excited for this. There's good developments here for both of us. I can't wait for that. That's going to be really good. But everyone.
Yeah, I'm just mad that I didn't do it earlier, because I would be in a better position now in terms of my survival work. It would have been way better. I could pivot right now. I could be doing more hours at the office that I work at, but it's fine. It's what's great about it is with the NASM certification that we're both doing now.
Yeah,
it's right up our alley. It's all it's biomechanics, it's anatomy, it's all this stuff that we kind of live for, and so that's it's not like, I feel like if I had to study for like the GRE right now, I feel like that would be really hard. But because it's NASM, because it's muscles and movement, I'm like, okay, this is just fun. But I'm excited for it, man. It's something else too. Not that there's so much that you can do in your life, so much power that you do. There's things that you do have control over. I get annoyed by people who think, just kind of allow themselves to get pushed around by life. There are things within your control. There's things that aren't within your control. And I have no idea where some of this, where's this pod going? Where will we be in 5 years? What will, who knows? I mean, I have a general idea of what I'd like to be doing, but I don't know if that will be the case. And I think I'm kind of more open to seeing where life takes me. Whereas before, 10 years ago, I was like trying to bend the universe to my will, and it doesn't work that way. I mean, if you keep on to a certain goal for a certain amount of time, I do think at some point you kind of get this gravity well around you, and you start pulling in people of like mind. That does happen.
It does.
But I'm more open about just learning about where all this goes, learning more about myself and the world. And that's what's kind of cool. Like, I feel like where they say when you reach 40, it's when you've reached sort of intellectual maturity. And I think that's, if you're living right. And I think that's true with me. I'm definitely intellectually more mature than I've ever been. I think I feel like got a little bit of wisdom, a lot of knowledge, a little bit of wisdom. And I'm I'm so glad that I have that. I can't imagine what it must be like for people that are my same age, haven't figured out anything about their purpose, don't have interests, don't know what they want to do with that. To me is living hell. And but I also think that no matter what age you are, you can still do things.
Yeah.
You know, the idea that because because I turned this age or whatever that age, that I can't do a certain thing. Okay, maybe you can't be a professional NBA player, but it doesn't mean you can't maybe get to be really good and be an amazing basketball player in your 50s or however old you are.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever too late. There's a I don't want to call it a meme because it's not a meme. It's not meant to be funny. It's just sort of a saying that I've seen float around the internet for about maybe the past 5 or 6 years.
What's this?
It says, it's never too late to be the person you were always supposed to be. Or it's never too late to be the person you want to be. Never too late to be the person you want to be. And that's absolutely true because it starts internally. It starts in your character. You decide what you put in your mind. You decide the energy you put out to the world. You know, I read something just recently that was it. When you just smile at somebody, you're putting goodness out into the world. You're just like walking your dogs and you just smile or say hello to somebody. That is you making, even if that person doesn't receive it, you're making the world a better place. You're putting benevolence and love and kindness in the world. And it doesn't cost you anything. Nope, and I think that's one of the coolest realizations I've had in recent years. Maybe that sounds weird.
No, it sounds crystal clear, dude. It makes perfect sense. Absolutely.
But I like when I have that connection with people, either through a smile or through a good morning, or like at the gym just yesterday. My friend sent me this really intense pre-workout, and I'm telling you, dude, I'm so sore today. I went ham on my back and chest. I almost broke the rowing machine yesterday, and I just decided to keep going. And there was this guy who was on another machine, and I said, can I work in? And then just started talking. And this guy he's a stand-up comedian, super funny guy, and made a new friend. Like, it's just that little stuff would be the type of thing I wouldn't have allowed myself in previous lives, in my previous, and I don't mean like previous lives. I mean like maybe 10, 12, 15 years ago. Yeah, I love finding those little bits. And I think if more of us had that, we'd probably be less inclined to maybe do things to ourselves that aren't good, with, alcohol, drugs, food, whatever. It's so cool for me. It's like I'm realizing, no, there's so much goodness in this world. I want to stick around. I want to see what's over the next horizon for everybody. I want the best for everybody. And maybe all these conversations about, self-improvement and regenerative farming and integrative functional medicine, maybe this is the beginning of the second renaissance, where it's like, okay, we're going to look for our purpose, we're going to find our values, we're going to build our minds, we're going to build our bodies, our spirits. I feel like there's so much momentum out there for the good that people need to remember, because I think if we did, we'd be less apt to do these things that bring darkness into our lives. I don't know.
Absolutely. I think you're completely right, dude. And I think it ties in with just where we're at as a society, and with social media and just media in general. And I mean, I'm working this job here, and I recently started doing a little serving, because normally, I don't know if the folks at home know this, but I cook food. I've been a chef. I've been a line cook, all this stuff. So I've been working as a pizza and salad chef, and I started to do serving just as an experience, because when I come back to LA, I want to do that, because there's actually a lot of good money in it. I want to do it like part-time, like once or twice a week. Anyways, long story short, I noticed that everybody there has to have a couple drinks in them before they can like open up and relax and talk. And it's just wild. I mean, you and me aren't like that. No. We can sit here and have a really.
This is what it exactly. You and I have had conversations in my living room where we are just pouring it out.
Absolutely.
No substances involved at all.
None.
And there's so many people out there that they have to have 2 drinks in them before they can laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's
is.
a bummer. It's a huge bummer, but it's so that's sort of the epidemic of it. Like I have stuff I brought up here that, like, in the United States, 29.5 million people have what is called alcohol use disorder. Like, the amount of people, it's
how many? 29 million?
29.5. So that's 30 million. So that's almost 10% of the population, because we're like 30 million.
That's a lot. I wonder how many of them are admitted alcoholics, though. You know,
well, this is the thing. The root of all this for me is what it usually is all of this goes back to philosophy.
Yeah,
you had rational philosophy. You know, it's piped into people, and I think this is why so many men are getting involved in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Why they're studying the Stoics, even though I don't necessarily endorse everything in Stoic philosophy. I would much rather men climbing into Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics than, you know, these nihilistic, you know, postmodern deconstructionists that don't offer people anything. You know, this sort of let's rip the world apart and burn it all down. I'd much rather we be Stoics than that, because at least in Stoicism, you believe you have control over your character, and you believe that your moral character is the one thing you have total control over. And I think if you that's what you work on. And man, if more people, women and men, embrace just that concept alone, it's like, I'm just going to work on me. I'm going to focus on me and make myself better. If everybody did that, wow, that would transform society, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it does come down to a decision. You have to make a decision, a conscious effort to change. I have hope for this society. But
I do too. I don't think it's a lost cause yet. I get really mad when all I hear about is like, oh, you think, is civilization crumbling? Well, I don't know. I mean, things are certainly declining in some respects, but we thought that way in the late 60s. We thought that way in the 70s. And then we kind of, you know, things improved. You know, there's patterns to history, but those patterns are totally influenced by philosophy. It's garbage in, garbage out. If you put bad ideas into a person's head, or to a culture's, into a culture, into a nation, into a state, into an individual, that's going to play itself out. You know, the German philosophers are what gave us Hitler. When they started critiquing reason and saying that reason was impotent, well, I mean, it didn't take long before we got to the Third Reich. You know, so I'm not saying that isn't. We want to be on our defense that something like a Third Reich, a Soviet Union, those things don't ever happen again. I don't think we're there yet, but I think you need to be as aware of the philosophies and ideas you put in your head as you are the food in your mouth.
Absolutely, if not more, because
certainly
we are what we consume. You know, and so I recommend that people, you know, watching this, good thing you're watching this, because this show is healthy, and this show is healthy.
And here's the thing, if you've watched this long, either in terms of episodes or in terms of this length of this episode, you're probably someone who you're thinking about your life. You're thinking about your place in the world. You're thinking about what you want out of your life. You're thinking about how can you improve. And if that's the case, well, then you're already above a lot of other people in terms of on your way to hopefully building yourself a good life. But that it does boil down to ideas matter. Philosophy matters. So make sure, you know, really think about it. Now, I've culled so much stuff from like my social media feeds. You know, I'm very specific about how much news I take in and from where. I try to get a variety of sources, but I only have this much time for it, because again, it can be really draining. But outside of that, I get more art and philosophy through reading, audiobooks, art, film. That I love to just go through art books and stuff like that. You know, you're an artist, you're a painter. Fill your life with those things. Fill your life with the music, the artwork, the movies, the plants, the books, the ideas that really make you feel good, that bring you up, that bring genuine value and contentment to your life. That's the key.
Yeah, that's the key.
Keep burning the bright lights.
Yeah. That's the key. And know that you're the director here. You know, we were all born onto a stage, right? Like we were born onto something that we didn't really know what play it was, but here's your part, right? But now you're the director. If you're an adult and you're away from your parents, you've gone through high school, all this stuff, now you're the director. Now you get to decide how this goes. And that's what we're doing. And that's what I hope.
You're the prime mover in your own life. And while that can be really scary, just know that it is a benevolent universe, that as long as you aren't doing anything dangerous, you're probably going to be okay. But also it can be dangerous to go out and put yourself out there into the world, and that's okay. You know, do that because you're going to learn from it. It's not the end. It's almost never the end of the world. Almost never. So don't let fear call your shots, and let your love lead. Always let your love lead. Even when you're scared. Like, courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is acting in spite of fear. So remember too. You know, there's a lot of people out there that look like they're just the toughest, you know, just effortlessly cool and smooth. Those people have, I mean, maybe they don't, but you know, they do it anyway. They do it anyway. They paint that painting. They read that book. They ask for that date. They ask for that job. They make the recording. They pick up the guitar, whatever it is. But you've got to act. You've got to do something, and then build and build and build and build. One act of courage leads to a learning experience, and then another, and then another, and then another. And then what do you know? All of a sudden, you look back in the past 20 years, you've actually lived a few lives, and you've got some stories, and you've got some wisdom. That's the way to do it, man.
That's the way to do it. Yeah. And, you know, you don't have to be one character your whole life. You know? You can live many lives within this life. You don't have to just be the car mechanic your whole life.
You can reinvent yourself as many times as you want. And I've done it. And sometimes you have to leave your neighborhood. Sometimes you have to leave your city or your state to do that. But you have do it. You know, you don't have nobody. If you're living right, you're going to evolve as a person. So anybody who tries to tell you, oh, you're this, it's like, no. If you're living what you are, nobody can tell you who you are, because you know it, you live it, you are it.
Yeah. And then none of that stuff that people are saying matters after that, right?
No, it doesn't. None of it matters. What other people think of you absolutely doesn't matter. Those people are just afraid. They can't do what they want to do, so now they've got to attack you. And the final analysis, you have to look at your life as sort of like this grand tapestry that you paint on. And you know, it's or like a book. It's like you fill in the lines, you fill in, you know, the trees, you fill in the picture, the story, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't. Because here's the thing, we're all gonna die. Memento mori. It's coming. So live while you can. Live while you can.
Yep. Seize it by the balls and just do it, you know?
Really, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anyways, on that note, this was a great episode.
Man.
Great conversation. I think we should continue to talk about this sort of stuff, addiction, abuse, all this sort of things. I think we will, absolutely. But man, what a great cap on it.
No, for sure. And again, you sound great. You look great. Just the vibe. I'm happy where you're at. Being out east has really done for you. Obviously, I can't wait for you to get back and do a bunch of cool shit. But
me too, dude.
You do whatever you need to do, and soon enough we'll have you back out here, man.
Absolutely, it's all for the greater good and for the longer game.
We're in this, for the long haul. So, and again, guys out there, we always appreciate you guys watching, and please continue to like, comment, and share. Comment even if you don't like it, because that's still
why not?
Share it and say these guys suck. It helps us. So we appreciate all the views, all your time, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Absolutely. Have a good one, guys. Talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.